Gentlemen, welcome to the special call City Council meeting in the City of Rockport, Tuesday, September the 3rd, 2024. I'll ask you to join us with Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Mayor Pro Tem. Andrew.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Establish a presence for quorum. We'll have a roll call. Ward 1.
Here.
Ward 2. Can you hear us, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ward 3.
Here.
Ward 4.
Here.
Mayor here. We do have a quorum. First item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. We have some letters that have come in. I have some cards from folks that want to speak. First one from the cards that were filled out here, Andrew Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Is that mic working?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to speak to y'all regarding the budget and the utility rates specifically. As you know, and we're aware, 9-10 months later, we're still trying to get the city to make the PUC happy on the utility rates. I see we had a rate study, and the rate study says 20% more for the out-of-city customers for water and sewer. Yet, next year, we're recommending 28% more. So my question is why? Y'all have done 38, tried 50% more, and had to pull off that, and the rate study is recommending 20%. So I also see y'all are doing a multi-year vote today. We'll set the rates for several years. And our date to petition is not off the effective date, it's off the date of decision. So if you continue forward with setting the rates in the future for 5 years, I will petition it immediately. And I have the PUC, I have the a rate study to back up the 20%. We know for a fact that your 38% was too high, your 32% was too high, and your 50% was outrageous. But yet, you have an opportunity to do the right thing and put it at 20%, yet you're not doing it. I don't understand it. Do the right thing for once. 20%, please. Thank you.
Scott Hime.
Scott Hime, 1901 FM 3036. This is about the TIRZ. If you go to a Whataburger and someone at the front door says they want a meal, but they don't have quite enough money, you might ask them how much they need and give it to them. You wouldn't give them your debit card. Well, the story being spun about this TIRZ is that the developers want to develop the property, but the numbers can't quite work without help from the government. That must mean they have a budget and an amount of money that they can spend. So how much are they short? Did any of you ask, how much do you need? If we knew how much money they're short, shouldn't we tell them that we'll give them a tax rebate equal to that amount and then stop? Why would we give them more money than they need to assure that the property gets developed? And isn't that the whole premise for the TIRZ? What the city manager, and by extension this council, is proposing is that we give a 25-year tax refund to the front people for a family that's worth $12 billion, give or take. The city manager enlisted a local person to go out and solicit people to speak in favor of the condemnation of Veterans Park when that was going on. I know because I was one of the people who was asked to speak. And for the record, I came here and the microphone was cut off because I think they were afraid of what I might say or not say. We're going to be talking about ethics complaints in the very near future. The city manager's job is to present policy to you and not to lobby. If the city manager had been diligent enough to solicit comments from the entire community, you would have heard that the working class and poor in this community have not been waiting for this project for decades as the sales pitch goes. They don't care until I tell them about the 25-year tax refund, at which point they get very angry. And that's precisely why comments were solicited from a select group of people and not them. Some 60% of the children in this community are on free or reduced lunches. Those children have parents and grandparents, and that doesn't count the poor who don't have children in school. You've sold this project as something that benefits everybody. These people are saying they'll never afford the upscale shopping or stay in a luxury condo or pull a 100-foot boat into a slip. If the alleged economic benefits ever trickle down to them, it'll be worthy of a Christmas movie on Hallmark. As a result of these efforts to solicit public comments, this council has been presented with an extremely biased view. In the process, the broader public read a newspaper account that sounds like everyone agrees with the TIRZ except a very small group of malcontents. My question is whether any of you members of council were aware that this biased slate of public comments was at least in part solicited by your city manager, and is that the city manager's job? Did she do it on her own? The public deserves an answer to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Hime.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane, I have two from you. Did you want to go with the other one?
Mine's on the tax rate.
Sorry?
I'm on the tax rate.
Okay. Nancy Bolting? Okay, you can do that. Okay, we have some other citizens to be heard with material that was sent in to us. The first one I'm going to read, this is from a gentleman named Travis Macklin who lives at 148 Shoalwater Way, which is outside the city, but he asked this be read, and I will read it. Board and community, you are elected to represent us, and I want you to be more conservative using our tax dollars and lower our taxes, work together with the community and be upfront and open with our taxes. Do not pass this budget for this amount. Lower it and work to change for the better, work for everyone and not for others' agendas. Thanks, Travis Macklin. Andrea?
From Shana Brader, 703 South Burn Street in Rockport. This is going to be about the hot tax. I'm ready to express my strong support for keeping the city's marketing hot hotel occupancy tax funds within the city's budget to benefit all local businesses. As a business owner in a community, I've witnessed firsthand the significant impact that the local support can have on the prosperity of our businesses and consequently our entire city. Over the past 2 years, it has become increasingly evident that the Rockport-Fulton Chamber of Commerce has not been promoting our city with the same enthusiasm and effectiveness as in the past. The leadership has failed to engage in critical marketing activities that once played a vital role in drawing visitors to our area. For example, there have been no tourism expos, television appearances, trade show booths, or distribution of promotional flyers and materials to other visitor centers or state centers, efforts that were once cornerstones of our city's promotional strategy. Local businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they rely heavily on the influx of visitors that robust marketing campaigns can bring. Unfortunately, I have observed chamber funds being spent outside of our community on goods and services that could and should have been sourced locally. This practice not only diminishes the impact of those funds, but also deprives our local economy of the support it desperately needs. By keeping the city marketing hot funds within the city budget, we can ensure that these resources are used to directly benefit our local businesses and stimulate economic growth within our community. This approach will not only foster a stronger, more resilient local economy, but also promote the well-being of our residents and enhance the overall quality of life in our city. I urge you to consider the long-term benefits of investing in our local economy, and I heavily support the reallocation of the marketing hot funds in the way that maximizes their impact on all local businesses. Thank you for the vote for fiscal responsibility with the hot funds. Sincerely, Shana Brader.
Okay.
Patrick Kane, 1123 East Cedar Street, Rockport. The consultant recommended a 20% surcharge for the out-of-city utility ratepayers. However, you're charging water customers 27.9% more next year and 24.2% the year after. Since you're approving a multi-year rate change, this action can be petitioned to the PUC, with the rate study providing all the proof that ratepayers need to win their case. Stop milking the out-of-city ratepayers, as you have done for years, and set the next year's water rates at the 20% surcharge. With regards to the tax rates, please be clear on the impact of the tax hike you are implementing. The tax assessor's notice states you are raising taxes by 19.71%, which increases taxes on the average homestead by $252.15 per year. Our notices showed increases of 16.33% for 2023 and 9.29% for 2022, for an overall increase of 52.2% over the last 3 years. Regardless of how it will be spent tonight, those are the facts. The agenda packet focuses on the impact from the M&O portion of the tax increase. Even if that is what is required by law to be disclosed, you can't ignore the large increase in the INS portion of the tax rate. Be truthful and put it on the record at tonight's meeting. Please skip the spin tonight to include statements about reducing the tax rate each year, as we all should know that is the outcome of rising property valuations. I also do not need to hear that Rockport's tax rates are lower than surrounding communities. I care about what I pay. I don't care about what they pay, and that simple statement also ignores a comparison of property valuations and what city services are provided. As an example, many have paid fire departments while ours is volunteer. Let's also skip blaming the Appraisal District for higher taxes. Their higher valuations are already factored into the tax rate calculation. You own the tax increase, no one else. So own up to it and accept a 52.2% increase over the last 3 years has a significant impact on retirees and lower income earners in our community. Jerry Reeves, 1517 Shadyside. The City Council is continuing to raise taxes to compensate for their blunder of building and mismanaging an oversized and elaborate courthouse and city service building that doesn't even fit into the landscape of the city. Instead, we should be using our resources to clean up and properly manage the city we have. Buildings should not be allowed to sit empty and rot. City maintenance codes should be enforced to protect property values, which the city continues to raise. I believe people deserve a COLA, but do not understand why a city that houses a police department, sheriff's department, parks and wildlife, and DPS, and a strong border patrol presence needs another police officer. In conclusion, I'd like to point out that the value of property is determined by the total cost of ownership. When interest rates and taxes go up, the value comes down. Cities have used tax increases to clear out neighborhoods for the past 100 years. Is that your plan for the citizens of Rockport? Brett Christianson, 31 Lauderdale, Rockport. Tax valuation, improvement to property. This should be adjusted only if improvements are made with the survey property line of the property being assessed, not assessed by the area in which we reside. Why should my property taxes go up if my neighbor puts in a pool, or the guy down the street build a new outbuilding, and so on? Improvements to the property should be based on those improvements made within the surveyed property line of the property being assessed. This is totally wrong and unfair, as well as some other assessments made.
We have Kathleen Swanson, 1012 South Pearl Street, related to the increased tax rate. I've been living in Rockport for about 20 years. I've watched my property taxes increase at a rapid rate. I am 66 years old. I am elderly and disabled. I feel like the city is trying to get rid of people like me. It seems they only want rich people living here. Everyone should be able to afford our taxes. Right now, my property tax is higher than my homeowner's insurance and higher than my TWIA. Please don't continue to burden the local taxpayers anymore. It breeds insecurities.
Next item on the agenda, Section 4, Budget and 2024 Tax Rate. Item number 1, consider approval of the first 2 readings of an ordinance amending the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, Chapter 102, Utilities, Article 3, Wastewater Service, Division 4, Service Charges, by amending wastewater rates for all inside city customers, providing for the validity of said ordinance, repealing all prior ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date. Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you. Good evening. This is stemming off of the presentation that at the public hearing by Dan Jackson with Will Dan Consulting gave us. I know that we've sat through this, so I'll try to summarize this a little more so, but it's going to be the first reading of the ordinance. On the wastewater inside city limits, we're trying to do the 5-year deal where we approve it once, and then without council intervention, it would continue to increase at those amounts that Dan Wilden had noted and that is noted in the presentation. With the inside city limits residential, the increase for the first the years would be 9%, 9%, 8%, 8%, and 8% is what we're proposing on that. For the non-residential, we would be doing the same as the residential. And for the outside city limits, the outside city limits wastewater rates would be 0% the first year, 12.4 the second, 8% the third, 8%, and then 8%. And that's on the base. For the volumetric readings, it would be 0% for the first year, 14.4% for the second, 8%, 8%, and 8%. For non-residential outside city limits, it would be 0% for the first year, 29.3% for the second, 8% for the third, 8% for the fourth, 8% for the fifth. And that's for the base. Volumetric would be 0%. First year, second year would be 30.4%, and then 8%, 8%, and 8%. For people not on city water, for those that are inside city limits, the increase would be 9% for the first year, 9% for the first year, 8%, 8%, and 8%. And then for locations outside of the city limits, it would be 0% for the first year, 18.3% for the second, 8% for the third, 8% for the fourth, 8% for the fifth. And so again, those are following the presentation. Are there any questions, please?
Council, have questions?
Is there any fluctuation from the recommended rates of the rate study versus what's in there?
Other questions?
Move to approve item 1 as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Based on the rate study, it proposes maintaining 24, 25, and 26 for outside residential at one base rate and then increasing it in the year 27. We moved away from that?
To move away from it?
Did we move away from that?
On wastewater?
Yeah, I see the wastewater is the increase there. Let me see. So it's just for, okay, I'm good. I was just trying to feed back and forth between two things. I just wanted to ensure that it was still the same as what was recommended in the rate study.
Yep.
And if you want to look at the back of the presentation, also there's a schedule that breaks all that out as well, that the Wilden Group put together and that this would be tied to.
Yeah, it was the water that was based on the 3-year continuation with an increase.
The rate study, the actual rate study numbers are included with your thing. So the ordinance mirrors this in both water, wastewater, and the fees.
We did have a motion. Do we have a second?
We have,
I had it. Thank you, Matt. Any further questions?
I signed up to speak on 5. We're on 5.
No, we're on 1.
Roman numeral 5. 4.
Oh, yes, Roman numeral 5, letter 1. Number 1. Yeah, we're on 4.
Yes, still on number 1. Number 1 under 4, tax
We're
and
on
budget.
4, 1.
Yes. Have a motion and a second. Any further question?
I can't speak on what I signed up for. Roman numeral 5.
I'm sorry, what?
I can't speak on my part. I don't want to speak on Roman numeral 5.
No, we're not on,
We're on Roman numeral 4,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
item 1.
4 on my card.
okay.
On my card, I wrote 4.
Yes, but on 4, number 5 on 4 is the tax rate. And that, is that where you want to talk?
I want to speak on the beginning of Roman numeral 4.
Okay. Mr. Sorrell? Mr. Kane? Right ahead.
Sorry, procedurals get a little confusing, but yes, I wanted to speak at the beginning of this budget and tax rate.
Okay.
That way I can go. But to answer your question, Stephanie, the rate study recommended 20% increase, but what the city's doing is not lowering the first year, second year, third year down to the 20%. They're leaving the rate at the inflated above 20% rate. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'll just start petition when we're done. This year, our tax rate, we're talking about a 20% increase in our tax rate this year. Mayor J. Rowe, since you've been elected in less than a year and a half, do you realize that you have enacted and led the leadership to increase our property tax levy 52.5% in less than 2.5 years? That's not sustainable. I remember a debate we had, and trust me, I'm glad I didn't win the mayor's election. I built 8 storage facilities and 2 RV parks since you've been mayor. You said at the debate at South Rockport Neighbors, you said, our finances, city finances, are in such great shape, and Mr. Henderson's done such a great job, that we could actually incur more debt in the city of Rockport without raising taxes. You said that at the debate. I listened to it this morning. Quote, yet 2.5 years later, you've raised our property taxes 52.5%. If you had ran on that campaign, how many people in this town you think would have voted for you? My opinion, not many. Anyway, also in our agenda packet, y'all talk about the M&O. Well, we all know you got M&O on your property taxes and INS. But when things are so stinky around here, you don't tell the truth. You're saying on average, because on the M&O side, it's a $21.96 on $100,000 a house. But when you put the whole property tax together for average homestead in Rockport, it's not $21 for the year. It's $252 alone this year. Tell the truth when you tell what you're doing. That's only this year, 20%. Add up the other 32.2% you've done in a year and a half. Why am I here? You think I like it? I've been here longer speaking than all y'all sitting here. Way longer than all y'all, even longer than you, Andrea. You think I like coming here and speaking every week from my health? I have kids that were born here and both have houses here and both work here. I want them to be able to live here. You're taxing out the working people. 52.5%, are you kidding me? Who does that? Bottom up budgeting. So your city staff comes to you, here's our wish list, here's our budget. Then you present it to them and say, this is what we need to operate the city. Not one time in any budget meeting has any of y'all said, is there anything we can cut? Not one person said it. Not one person said it. Is there anything we can cut? Task your staff, task your employees, find the cuts, for God's sakes. Mayor, lead. You can't just give. Lead. Find cuts in this budget. This is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Ms. Bolting, did you want to talk at this point?
My name's Nancy Bolting. I live at 201 Spanish Woods Drive in Rockport, Texas. And unlike the previous, I understand why we're raising the taxes. Our appraisals have gone up, therefore our taxes are going to go up. I get that. The M&O, $400,000 home, that is $87.84. That's in a year. Include the other taxes, you got to include your appraisals to that. I want to step back about 3 years ago. I stood up here and I said I didn't see a problem with the 3.5% increase because that was the COLA for our city employees. Our city employees did not get a COLA raise 3 years ago. Their insurance went up. Now our cost of living has gone up. So if you look at that, I'm going to piggyback on taxing our residents out. How about taxing our city employees out, the people that live here that support us? There has been a no new tax revenue rate, denied the city employees on an annual COLA. Now we're facing another year to pass a new tax rate that would increase COLA increases. So they're experiencing the same thing all the rest of us are. The tax increases affect people employed with the city. And in this case, consider 15 to 20 families that may not have a job if you don't increase this. I can't live with that. That small amount of an increase, I can afford it, but these families can't. I don't want to see them lose their jobs. I don't want to see our city services being decreased because we don't want to pay that extra for them. You talk about the extra fees that are going towards our volunteer fire departments. That's a minimum fee, and it's voluntary. We had somebody complain about that. It's a voluntary fee. Pay it. They're volunteers. They have jobs. They come out. They support us. Lastly, I want to point this out because I want to thank each and one of you. Your monthly salaries, as of 1991, Mayor Pearson put into the ordinance that the mayor gets paid $256 a month. You get a car allowance of $30. I looked through the records to try and figure out whether y'all have gotten an increase since then. I haven't been able to find anything. The council members get $100 a month. So thank you for volunteering your time on a regular basis to run our city. I appreciate that. In 2022, the average city employee made between $17 per hour up to $46 per hour. That's in 2022. We're in 2024. You're passing a 2025 budget. So throw this into the mix. Our Aransas County Navigation District commissioners, who also tax us and never hear the same complaints. In 2023, they had an average compensation of $69,000 a year. Y'all are getting paid $100. You're getting paid less than $300, Mayor. 2024, their budgeted amount is $70,000. Aransas County Commissioners in 2018 averaged between $24,000 to $26,000 a year. They got a longevity pay increase, and they also got a $3,600 a month auto allowance.
Thank you very much, but your 3 minutes just ran out. This gong didn't go
Sorry
off.
about that. You didn't dong me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. All right, I had a motion and a second a while back. Any further questions on item number one?
I can't second it since he's. I will second it so we can, okay. I just want to make sure, I'll second.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure that we're very clear. This is the rate study. Our numbers are based on the rate study that we were told to go get. We were told to go and make this rate study. We were told to make sure that we do our due diligence and we do our work on it. And this is the rate study. We're keeping to the numbers of that. And so I just want to clarify, what is the difference that they're seeing here?
I'm not sure what we are a little high, if you'll remember. We're a little higher than the 20%. So we keep the out-of-city steady, but the in-city raises faster. So we settle out at the 20% at year 3 because we're raising in-city faster. So it's a 20% difference between in-city and out-of-city.
Over the 5 years.
If you live out of the city this year, you are not getting an increase. If you get in the city this year, you are getting an increase. So that gets closer to that 20%.
But they're trying to level that out over 5 years. It's
I think he levels it out over 3
years?
Don't quote me on that, but I think at year 3, it levels out at the 20%. We're like at 23 right now or something in that area, maybe. Did you have it in front of you? It's all in the study, very clear that it levels out at 20%. And I mean, it's a legal rate study.
Okay. Just want to make sure that's very clear that we're sticking to the rate study and we're not doing anything.
We did not
inflated.
deviate.
Okay.
Mayor, if I might, just piggyback on Mayor Pro Tem's comments that we were asked to get a rate study. When we, if you will, shot from the hip last time we tried this and we used an older rate study, we got petitioned. We performed a rate study that came back to us this year, and I don't feel comfortable deviating from it at all because this is a tried and true certified business that does utility rate studies for cities, municipalities, and these are the numbers that have been given to us, and I don't feel comfortable deviating from anything on this rate study.
Anything further? And we still have a motion and a second. If not, I'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous. Item number 2, consider the approval of the first of 2 readings of an ordinance amending the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, Chapter 102, Utilities, Article 2, Water Service, Division 3, Service Charges, by amending water rates and fees for all customers, providing for the validity of said ordinance, repealing all prior ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you. Again, like we did with wastewater, we're trying to do a 5-year plan on this where we approve it. We approve it this year. It lasts for 5 years unless there's council intervention to the contrary. Again, this is following straight off of the presentation by Dan Jackson with Wildan Consulting. And so again, I'm going to try to summarize because I know we've sat through this presentation before, but I'll go back through it. For the water, for the inside water city rates, first year, and this is for the first year is 4%, and 3%, 3%, 2%, and 2%. And those numbers are good for both the base as well as volumetric usage. For the commercial customers, the same rates apply. For the wholesale customers, specifically Copano Cove, they're looking at 4%, 3%, 3%, 2%, and 2% for those 5 years. For the outside city limits customers, it is base is 0%, year 1, 0%, 0%, 1.5%, and then 2%, and that's for base. For the tranches, for the volumetric tranches, it is 0%, 0%, 0%, 0%, 0%, and 2% is what we're looking at that. So that one's 4 years.
I might have been speaking to the water when I said it was 3 years. I'm not exactly sure what the sewer level out is. Maybe 2 years sewer, 3 years water, something like that. When I said 3 years, it was definitely for the water though, so.
I think it's one year sewer. Yes, ma'am. It's water that it extends out. So it's a blend.
I apologize.
Okay. For the commercial customers outside city limits, that's where we are. It is 0%, 0%, 0%, 7.8%, and 2%. For the volumetric uses, it's 0%, 0%, 0%, 6.1%, and 2%. And that covers that for water. Again, what we're asking is for this to approve this for the ensuing five years as per the Wildan study, which again, the numbers supporting these are also attached to the packet. Those are referenced on the last 2 pages. Any questions, please?
Questions, council?
I just want to make sure it's clear that a lot of the water service, I believe, we have a 3% increase on ourselves to service this water, correct?
We do. There is a built-in SAMPAT increase into the formula. So when the water increases on us, we should be able to absorb it unless they come and do something exorbitant. But then we would need to go back and probably do a new study if we get a really, really exorbitant water increase.
It's 4% on the first year, then 3%, 3%, 2%, 2%.
And that's because it's based on the rate study that it came back that we were not charging enough to sustain what we need to in the city.
Yes.
To make the maintenance and fees.
Yes, and this is for inside city limits water.
And again, those numbers from the rate study, directly from the rate study, are in your packet. So if there's a deviation, it's a scrivener's error because they should be the exact same.
Okay. I make a motion to approve agenda item number 4, section 2.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
I have a second. They both
Someone
second.
say
We do have a second.
Flip a coin.
Any further question? If not, I'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It is unanimous. Item number 3, consider the approval of the first of 2 readings of ordinance amending City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, Chapter 102, Utilities, Article 4, Surcharge Revenue Account by amending Section 102-401 Surcharge to increase surcharge fee, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date. Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you. We're coming back to you after we received direction from council that we wanted to look at going up to $3 per connection fee for the utility surcharge. And this is used to help offset some of the capital expenses of our area volunteer fire departments. And what we think is that going up from $2 to $3 is that we would be collecting somewhere around an additional $137,000 to offset those costs for the volunteer firefighters. And we also looked at some of the counts at some of the utility accounts and what, if there was anybody, it looked like that we had attrition in terms of raising it like we did last year. And again, the counts have continued to go up, that it doesn't look like that attrition is occurring. So we should be looking at being able to get that about $137,000. Council recommends approval.
Is that clear as a volunteer? That's a volunteer payment?
Yes, it's a voluntary payment.
Make sure that's-
Yes, thank you.
You may have reworded the ordinance a little to make it more voluntary, more obvious than it's voluntary.
I
Questions?
appreciate you putting the information together, because that was important for me to know that by us increasing that, we're not losing participants. So I'm happy to hear that people are still continuing to participate.
It was a good question.
Two questions, Rob. Well, I guess one's crystal ball, and if we are to get out of the gas business in the future, what we would do with Lamar, we'd have to figure something out there, one way or another. And then, I believe last year, or it may have been 2 budget cycles ago, we talked about the 2% that the city retains. I think it came from 5%.
We reduced it from 5 to 2 last year. Yes, sir. And this is only 2% for this year.
Do we still need to retain that too? I mean, do you think that's necessary?
Well, I think we need every bit we can get, given where we are, in all honesty.
Did reducing the 5% hurt us as far as staff hours that are needed to send this money correctly?
We're going to do the work regardless. It's just we're going to make less money for doing it, but we're going to do this for the city and for the firefighters.
Other questions?
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 4 with section 3.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question? Not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous. Item number 4, consider the approval of the first of 2 readings of an ordinance amending the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, Chapter 102, Utilities, Article 1 in general, Sections 102-1, 102-3, 102-7, 102-9, and Article 2, Water Services, Section 102-28, and adding Section 102-15 regarding amending fees and adopting additional fees for utility services, including meter tampering fees, providing for the validity of said ordinance, repealing all prior ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Yes, again, these fees were worked on and presented by Dan Jackson with Wildan Consulting at the public meeting that we had, I believe it was August 13th. And we wanted to stress on this, as Dennis did when he was doing his, it wasn't by Dan, it was by Dennis, in Dan Wildan's presentation, that Dan was stressing that these fees, even though we're proposing to go up on these fees, they still don't cover 100% of the cost. They're, except for, I believe, 1. They're still below cost, and these have not been updated, I think, in like a decade, I believe, or more. So we're looking to adjust these. So some of the proposals is deposits for residential deposits to go from $150 to $170, and for commercial to go from $700 to $780. Again, the customers get this back, so it's not I shouldn't call it a fee. It's a deposit, but they get it back whenever they close their account. There are also there's some fees associated with disconnect of service. Reconnect fee is, we're proposing to go from $37.50 to $85. And we're also looking at raising the NSF, big non-sufficient funds fee, from $25 to $30. Service charges from $25 to $60. And I'm just gonna pick a couple of these here. And if there's any lockouts or meter tampering, there would be, the meter tampering would go up to $100. And we're also including a provision in this for if there is any meter, again, if there is any meter tampering, that's theft of service, and so there would also be charges for what was stolen, I mean, essentially stolen. And what it costs the city for damages and stuff like that, because we have to go in and fix it. And then also, we're talking about possibly even having similar civil or criminal penalties associated with that. There is a chart at the back of the packet that does show what all the fees are going to individually, what they're from and going to individually, as well as how much of the cost recovery that it is recovering. So we're trying to go up, but be fair. Any questions?
Council?
Yeah, I just want to put this chart up so people are seeing. When was the last time this was updated?
Probably the 13th.
No, I
No,
mean,
no.
like,
At least 10
I'm
years
sorry.
ago.
Okay, yes.
Like probably
Okay.
10 years ago.
so about
sorry.
10 years ago. So if you're looking
Like
at the current fee
2013, at
charges, what we're having, the cost of what we are charging, and then the suggested fees, this is why, and this is where we go into why the city's losing money, is because we're doing fees like this when we're not making money on even just the basis of what, you know, what the cost of these actual things to do. So I think that's like a good prime example to know that we have a lot of things that we have to update and do better, so we can start making money instead of losing money for our constituents, so we can not have to raise taxes and we can keep it low. So that's just a prime example for people to see what happens when we don't update our things over 10 years.
I think Dan made a really great point during this presentation on a meter lock fee. We're not even covering the cost of the lock. So we're getting on board.
Yeah, I think it's also important to see, you know, our current fee charge, look at the suggested fee charge, but look, out of 11 line items, only 2 of them are truly meeting the cost recovery.
Yeah.
We're still not there on a lot, so it does look like a big jump, but it is important to recover as much cost as possible, and I'm glad that it's been updated.
Also, this isn't mostly costs that are gonna be borne by existing citizens. It'll be new residents coming in, unless of course you get your water shut off, and then those are gonna be on existing resident. But it's not gonna be an impact to your average water customer.
It's an impact in for habituals is the deal, that the people who are paying their bills are paying on their behalf. The people who are paying their bills are paying the people who are habitual disconnects and reconnects.
Any other question, comment?
I move to approve agenda item 4.4 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question? Not, we'll call for the vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. That is unanimous. Item number 5. Consider the approval of the first of 2 readings of an ordinance of the City of Rockport approving the assessment and renditions of the 2024 taxable property as submitted by the Appraisal District, levying a tax rate for $100 valuation for the City of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, for the tax year 2024 of .235544 for the purposes of maintenance and operations, and .169750 for the payment of principal and interest on debt of the city, and that the property tax rate increased by the adoption of a tax rate of tax rate of .40 5294, which is effectively a 14.57% increase in the tax rate, providing for a lien on all real and personal property to secure payment of taxes due thereon, containing a severability clause, repealing all ordinances and parts thereof in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. This tax rate will increase more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. The tax rate will effectively be raised by 14.57%. Will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $21.96. Mr. Sherrill, City Manager.
So, Mayor and Council, I kind of, I'm going to say Frankenstein the presentation with other things that we've heard already through the budget process. I know this is probably our 6th meeting, counting workshops and all. So I'm going to just reiterate what we've gone through. Our financial priorities this year were to complete the 2023 audit to get beginning fund balances, which we have not done, but it should be coming to you.
It's my fault.
No, it's not.
We're shooting for the 24th now.
So you should have it this month. We'll get our beginning balances from there. Reserves are recommended 180 days. Per our 2022 audit, we're down to 111 days. We do expect to lose more with the 2023 audit. We've been very clear that we've been deficit spending, so that will be a result of that, and we're in a mode to eliminate deficit spending. We needed a cost of living adjustment. We haven't done our V&E since I've been here, which has been at least 2 years, and I think it's been more, 3 or more, since we've done our vehicle and equipment replacement sinking fund. We need to fix our current business model. We need to pay for long-term assets with long-term money and not out of maintenance and operation. You might have to roll me. So move the V&E replacement to the INS. It's again along the same premises of paying for long-term assets with more long-term money rather than out of operating funds. We would like to move forward with your support of additional funding of the voter-approved rate and support the utility rates and fees per the rate study, which you've done that tonight, and we're very appreciative. We think that'll get us on the right track. Remember that not doing these items that we have listed and talked about will result in cuts or money cut to the equivalent. Speaking to our operating budgets, we raised our budget less than 2% this year, our overall budget. We were less than 2% last year on our increase as well. So we are keeping our budget as lean as possible. You know, inflation is going faster than we are increasing our budget. And I just put this in here. Robbie had shown us at one point, the red line would be a 3.5% increase that we are allowed by law with on the M&O side. You can see that in the past years, 2021, we have not been keeping up with the level of inflation. So while we're increasing at 2%, inflation's going at 8, 9, 7% around there. So we're trying to keep it reasonable. It costs more to do this year than it did last year to do the same thing. I think I said that backwards, but y'all know what I meant. If we look at our area property taxes, it's broken down into M&O and INS. The red line is where we are today. Comparatively, we are quite a bit lower than our surrounding cities. The blue line is where we're asking you to go to, so we will still be quite a bit lower. And that is both our INS and M&O. Most of the cities up there have just an INS. I'm sorry, just an M&O higher than our entire tax rate. We talked about we needed the full we needed 6 pennies to, oh, y'all can't see that, but we needed the full 6 pennies to fund everything to get us a COLA police officer and take enough debt to fund our CIP and move the long-term assets into the INS side of the budget. Ultimately, after a lot of discussion, we settled on the 4-penny increase, basically, and a 5% COLA, moving the INS, moving the shoot.
Got a tax increment.
Oh, and we found a tax increment, yes. Moving the vehicle and equipment replacement program over to the debt side, and then putting a placeholder for an officer if we get a grant and if our positions are full. If they're not, that about $150,000 would fall down to the bottom line, which, if you remember, we should be at 190 days or at 111. The placeholder's not gonna hurt us either way. I'd like to point out that we have the same number of officers for at least 5 years, going on 6, maybe more. And our city has grown, so we are not keeping up with growth on the police side. He's running lean and mean over there, and I think he's doing a good job. So holding that placeholder will be good for us all the way around.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. What percentage is the COLA on that one that's circled?
I'm sorry?
The percentage of the COLA?
The percentage on that COLA was 3%, but when I pulled the slide over.
Okay.
In our discussions, we did 5%. I did not want to change the slide because this is the slide you originally saw.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. This is our tax rate over the past years since 2017. We started at 0.38. Going up the 4-cent increase, that's 3.5%, plus our increment that we found, and then 2 cents on the INS side. The tax rate will be approximately back to what it was in 2019. You can see that we've gone down every year on the rate, and this would be the first year with an increase. We're asking for approximately a 12% increase overall. So we're at 0.42 in 2019, and we're aiming for 0.42932 this year.
If you qualify,
Yes.
that rate's a little higher than what you're saying, and that's because that's when we saw that slide at that time. That we were trying to keep it consistent, but it's at that 40-cent carry, 40.5 cents.
Okay.
For real.
And we did tell you that there would be little fluctuations, but like I said, I didn't want to change what you already saw, but that's why I got Robbie here to keep me straight. And that's all I have. I would be happy to answer questions. I'd love to discuss it with you guys. I'm ready for questions, or he's ready for questions.
I'd like to say a couple of things for the sake of those of you that have stayed around and listened to all this, and you've heard what everybody else had to say. I was quoted a little while ago as saying back about 3 years ago that the budgets and everything were so great that we had all sorts of money that we could borrow to fix all sorts of things. And at that time, it was the truth, because we had 180 days reserve in our general fund to take care of problems we have. Over the last 3 years, things have gone not as well, and we have not been able to keep that reserve at 180 days. It's down to 111 days now. If it gets down to 90 days, we would not be able to sell bonds to issue debt because our bond rating would be so low we could not do capital improvements. And this budget gets us going back toward getting that 180-day general fund reserve where it needs to be. And that's the reason that I'm in favor of what we're doing right here. I want you to understand that and what was said. I did say that, but at the time that was the case. It hasn't been the case. We haven't been able to keep up. But I appreciate the work that the manager and our finance director have done on this. It has been extremely difficult. The workshops have been tough. And I appreciate that. But I'm glad that the folks of you that are here are, so that you can understand this is not something we take lightly to raise y'all's taxes. This is something we need to do to make our city viable and keep it in the shape that it needs to be in. There's my 2 cents worth. Council?
Mayor, City Manager Robbie, at the beginning of the workshop, I believe, workshops, we were presented the wish list, you know, what everything was If we had all the money in the world and didn't have any problems, this is what we could fund. We didn't fund anything. COLA.
You funded a COLA
COLA in a potential police officer.
if we get a grant to
So,
fund 75% of it.
Probably 20 or 30 other items that may have been on that list.
Correct.
Just shooting from the hip there, don't put an actual number, but something like that. There was a lot of things on that list that we just can't afford within our tax rates. So to say it's a 52% increase in budgets, I don't think our budgets have increased that much. And we haven't funded all the wish list, the nice things that you know, get asked for by staff. That'd be great if we could do some of those things. We can't, you know. I believe our budgets have remained relatively flat, and like you said, 2% over 2% last year and 2% this year. That's not that much growth in a budget. So that being said, I also support, and I thank staff and council and the community for the input they put into this budget and attending all these fun meetings. So.
I would like to say of almost 20 years, you guys put in more hours on this budget than any council I've ever seen. So you put in more time and more thought than most cities do. And I think that's something that you guys should be very proud of.
And let me add on to that comment, this is actually pretty fairly low many hours that we have in the past. I just want to bring up a couple points here. So I know we had Mrs. Bolting made a comment about the employees. They need a 5% COLA. How many employees did we lose last year because we did not do that?
I don't have a count, but Robbie has calculated that we had 90% turnover.
I just want to make sure that number's out there, a 90% turnover.
Now, that doesn't mean 90% of our employees left. That means that of the positions we have, some of them were a rotating door because they're low-paying jobs and they're not, you know, so.
They're going to surrounding communities.
Right, they're going, absolutely. Yeah, everybody went to Portland this year. So 90% turnover in the past year.
And let me say, I believe that they're going to the surrounding communities because we're not, right now, our tax rate is under half of what our surrounding communities are. I think it's about half of what they are. And I get what their point is. I don't have to pay that. I get their point. But you have to also understand that if we're losing employees and services, that's because we cannot pay our employees to handle those services. And if we're not doing that, we're not just going to get people upset with the tax rate. We're going to get people upset because we're not delivering services that we should be. I think that's just a very important fact that we have to understand. We have to be able to pay the employees to make those services happen. And when people stop seeing those services, that's when things go really downhill, I think, when you're running a business.
It's very expensive to have employee turnover. You guys all have businesses, you know it. The 5% is a drop in the bucket compared to what it costs. I mean, let's just throw the cops out there. You gotta buy uniforms and guns and things like that. And when they leave, we're just gonna, I'm messing with the chief, he's not even paying attention. But it is expensive to have turnover, and you guys know that.
Yeah, and so let's bring up the police officer with the grant. I think that we had discussed during the budget meetings that if we have 4 positions, yes, we have 4 positions open. If we do not fill those 4 positions, this 5th one is gonna go into our reserves. That's what we would like to put the money into. That's where it needs to go, so we can have a reserve and so we can make sure that we're paying for things if something does come up and we need to take that out, correct?
Correct. If we are awarded the grant and all of his current positions are not filled, we will not accept the grant.
And then I just want to sorry, I just have a couple things here. I just want to make sure that's very clear, because there's a couple comments that kind of threw me off, that we were not upfront about the $252 and whatever cents it was. That's been published in the paper, that's been published on Facebook, that's been published on numerous sites. So I just want to make sure that's clear that that has been out there. People are very well what the cost is going to be for an average citizen for the year. So make sure that we're not trying to hide things from people and try to not be transparent with what is going on with the taxes this year. I just want to make sure that comment's there.
And if I may, this is required, this wording, and it's carving out the M&O. I mean, I agree it does carve out the M&O, but this is legally required. It's not that we're trying to hide anything.
I think we've been very open about what the increase is gonna be, and that the average homeowner is now gonna have a tax bill of a little over $1,200.
And I believe that we also looked at, this is going to be the tax rate today. we have looked at the budget, and I know personally, I can't speak for the rest of the council. I'm calling you all the time, asking questions, why is this line here, why is that line there? We don't take this for granted. We don't want to raise our taxes. We don't want to sit here and have to raise anyone else's taxes. But if there's absolutely nothing we can do, and we have to make sure that these citizens are getting the services that they deserve, I'm going to have to raise the taxes. And for the last 4 or 6 years, I guess 5 years I've been on, we've continually, I get it, property taxes are a little higher, so the property, it looks like we're raising taxes, but the tax rate has actually gone down, and it's not working. It's just not working. We have to take out our reserves. We have to go in the red. We're not able to provide anything. Our CIP is kicking the can down the road. If we can't fix our infrastructure, we can't continue making sure that our citizens are being safe, and that's just not going to be okay with me. So I just want to make sure those comments are corrected, that we are doing our due diligence. We're not sitting here just taking this very lightly. It's not something that we want to do, but it's something that has to happen, unfortunately. And with this, we will make sure that we're hitting the bottom line at least, and making sure those services are where they need to be for the next, year before the next budget season. So I just wanted to put those kind of couples out there.
Stephanie?
God, I followed that. No, I just think it is important. I know she was saying this is an old slide, so, nearly 43 cents is what was originally proposed to us, and we have brought that down to just over 40. So it is important. We have tried to make reductions there and try to get it to its lowest value, but also by providing the things that are necessities at this time. We are trying to do this in a long term, not just budget to budget, and just trying to survive like we have the last couple of years. We haven't done well at that. I support the COLA 100%. I think, just as you guys talked about turnover, it's extremely important. The cost of training and orientation is ridiculous. We could be saving so much money if we put the value, ensure the staff knows we value them. I do want to just clarify, just because I was the one that kind of had a problem with it, sorry Chief, but we have 4 PD vacancies. We have the grant. We have to fund that at 75%, which is put in here. But if the 4 vacancies are not filled and we don't get the grant, we will take that money that we were going to put toward funding, and we're going to put it into the reserve, correct?
Yes, it is earmarked for that. It's publicly known, we've said this over and over, that, how much is it? It's like.
And the need is there. We actually carry a lot less.
It's about $150,000, so.
A lot less officers than we are projected to need within this area. So the need is there for the open vacancies. I just want to ensure that we are properly dispersing the money if it's not being used to what we intend it to be used now in the right place.
Yeah, we won't just blow it. It's earmarked. It has to go to one of 2 things, so. And again, I think that grant approval is gonna have to come here. If it's received, it will have to come to you. So you'll know at that point, you're gonna have to approve it, and we'll have the verification here of what needs to be done.
Matt, I think they can hear you, they can hear better tonight than they could before. Would you like to say anything while you're sitting there?
I want to ask one question on the police officer thing. I want to make sure we have 4 vacancies now. If we get the grant and we haven't filled all 4 of those, are we allowed to use that grant for one of those officers before going to the 5th one? Is that allowable?
No, sir. Has to be a new hire.
Okay, all right. That's the piece I was looking for. No, Mayor, that's all I've got. Thanks, everybody, to the staff, Robbie's staff, for putting this together to help us get through this.
If I may, there's specific language.
I've got it right here.
Wonderful.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.405294, which is effectively a 14.57% increase in the tax rate.
I will second it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further question or debate? For a record vote, we call Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Section 5, Number 6, consider the approval of the American Institute of Architects, AIA, document A104-217, agreement between the City of Rockport and DLF2, Inc., for an amount not to exceed $61,370.75.
Mayor, Council, thank you. A little over a year ago, we brought to y'all a possibility of putting some fiber in between the City Hall and, well, the three new buildings, Downtown Anchor Project, the City Hall, the courthouse, and the convention, or community center, and putting fiber to help round about our inner circle for underground fiber. That time, for the conduit alone to be placed in, we were estimating for our piece alone was going to be about $20,000. That would be consisting of the conduit between the City Hall and the community center, and half of the cost of the City Hall to the detention center, and the county would be paying the other half. At that time, that was just for the conduit, was expected at $20,000, and part of that was going to be overhead. The majority of it was going to be underground, but portion was overhead. Since that time, it was decided to go with a single bidder instead of doing multiple contractors, and between the county and the city, we chose to use DLF because they had the larger portion of the conduit. And since that time, we've also added the DLF would also include the fiber in that conduit. Another thing that's happened, we took the rest of it underground, and because of all the utilities that are in that area, there is now going to be using hydro excavation, which is basically using water to excavate in there to get around all the utilities that are in those areas. That being said, the cost has gone up tremendously and is now just under $62,000 for our portion only. That's our half of getting it from the detention center to the City Hall, and from the City Hall fully on the city's responsibility to the conventions, keep calling it convention center, I apologize, community center. And so the current price is $61,370.75 for our portion. There are still funds sufficient within the soft costs. There would not need to be any additional funds transferred at this time from another budget line item. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
Is it, so this portion, our 61,300, does the county have 61,300 to get to City Hall?
So their portion, they have to pay half of the portion between detention center and the City Hall, so they have a small portion there. They have to get it from the convention center to the community, I keep saying convention, I apologize, community center to the courthouse, and from the courthouse to the radio tower. All that's on them. And so they are actually, we're less than a third of the cost.
So their costs are going to be increased because they got a longer run from the courthouse back.
Yes, and they've already done part of theirs under that new parking lot. So they've already done a large portion of theirs. The one reason why we're asking for an additional contract with DLF is because they're tying theirs into the community center. They're putting a large portion of theirs cost into the community center, and they don't want us tying in with that grant. Gotcha. Because they have a TDM grant or GLO, I'm not for sure which, but they don't want our portion tied in with them.
I get it. That could commingle the funds that may not be appropriate.
Yes, sir. So they're DLF's asking for an additional contract with us.
Other question?
I move to approve items 6 as presented.
I have a motion. To have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question? We'll call for a vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Have a second? Yes.
I'll second.
We're adjourned.
Give it to you.